So the Nintendo Wii U and 3DS, Nintendo's doing it again. Okay, I didn't like the fact that Nintendo's closed the DSiWare and Wii eShop. Okay, not the Wii eShop, the Wii thing, and I think Nintendo is trying to become like Disney. Okay, we all know that back in the 2000s, Disney locked everything behind the Disney Vault. Okay, you were unable to access classic movies. You know, and I don't know why is it taking so long to load. And it's the same thing with the OSTs. Nintendo has no plans to offer the classic content other than a paywall where you don't own it, which is another reason why I hate streaming services. This is okay. Nintendo has no plans to offer classic content in other ways, basically. So Nintendo says that by 2022, it will no longer be able to use money on the Wii U and 3DS eShops. Again, nobody plays the Wii U anyways, but I don't understand why companies do this. They shut down, like, again, I can understand shutting down the servers for like a 20-year-old game or 10-year-old game for online because, again, people have moved on to the next gen version. But usually, when it comes to those games, like, for example, Halo 3, you can already play it on the next generation of consoles. So there's no real issue here with Halo. Or same thing with Mario Maker. You can just buy Mario Maker 2, which is basically Mario Maker 1 with more content. That's the difference. But the difference between those games and, for example, the Wii and DS online sign down, you can get all the 3DS and Wii U games, and of course, played all the games, some of the games that are also available on the Wii are also available on the Xbox and PS3. But the Nintendo has no other way to preserve its classic games. Nintendo doesn't have an obligation to preserve its classic games. Again, Nintendo is acting like Disney, okay? And I don't like Disney that much, okay? I used to when I was a kid, but I realized that Disney is not a good company. Disney will do anything to make money now, and Disney will ruin classic series in order to make a quick buck. So, Nintendo doesn't do that. It's not at that era just yet, or to bind everything. But Nintendo is basically vaulting the classic games. You either have to buy a subscription service on a Nintendo Switch, or you have to buy an old console for like $1,000 and the game for around $100 to $500. And a lot of other games that are not made by Nintendo. What about those games? Okay. What about those games? Indie games that are only available on the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U eShop. And those developers are not ported to other consoles or or the Switch. You can't buy those games anymore. You can't put you no longer can buy those games anymore. There's a lot of 3DS, there's a lot of Wii U games that are only on those consoles that you can't buy. And Nintendo has not ported to the net for Switch either. For example, Xenoblade Chronicles X is a game that's only on the Wii U. You can't buy it on the Switch because they have not ported to the Switch. I don't think they have plans of porting it to the Switch. Or you can buy it on the Wii U eShop. But now since they're closing it in 2023, you can't buy it anymore. You have to buy the over-expensive physical editions if you have a Wii U and you don't have the game, basically. The same thing with games like Nintendo Land as well. Because very old Nintendo games are because they discontinue these old games, which I don't know why they just don't re-release these old games and these old consoles back in like a limited quantity, so you don't have to pay exorbitant prices to buy these old consoles and old games. For example, the PS1, I think they released the PS1 Classic and no one bought it, but I think it would have been better if they just put out the PS1 on Amazon and let people buy it. Like produce like a couple like million consoles, so the console doesn't get like super well. I think that's one easy way to stop making all these consoles so overpriced. Like, and all these games so overpriced on the secondhand market. Like, I tried to get the old DS games for Pokemon, but it was very hard to get a price under $50. Okay, the old Pokemon games in the DS, Pokemon Platinum and Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Those games, the Platinum sold like 8 million copies. 8 million people bought the game. I get it, people don't want to get rid of the Pokemon games, or people got games that broke. But both of the copies I had were broken. You couldn't play them anymore. I don't know why doesn't Nintendo just release the games on Amazon so you don't have to pay the exorbitant, so you can just say, oh yeah, if someone doesn't have this game or wants to buy our old console, we can. Okay? Again, it's the same thing with the other manufacturers. They do the same thing too. But with Xbox, okay, let's compare Nintendo to Xbox. Again, Sony does the same things as well. They start on like the P store and stuff. And, doing the same thing, offering no ways to crap. But if you compare it to what Xbox does, you can buy all of the original Xbox games, or at least the specific games on the Xbox. And not every 360 game is ported to the Xbox One yet. Same thing with the original Xbox, but Microsoft is still porting games like every other month available on the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X. All of the Xbox One games are available to be purchased on the Xbox Series X. Again, Nintendo's doesn't do this. The virtual console is a very good idea. It was. You were able, like, all the Wii games you had on the virtual console, you were able to transfer them to the Wii U. And the 3DS, they could have done the same thing with the 3DS and the Switch, and the Wii U and the Switch. But Nintendo, of course, now they just want to rock all the games on the... And people were saying, but this is expected stuff because the console is old, so they have to close it, okay? They have to close it. No, they don't have to close it. I don't get this. Microsoft does, and the Xbox 360 came out in 2004. You can still buy games on the 360. You can still buy movies on the 360. Okay, why do we have to close the store for the 3DS and Wii U? So people who own a 3DS can't buy games anymore. They have to buy a Switch or else, basically. They can't play the 3DS and play the games on the 3DS. And the Wii U, a lot of the games have been ported, but the 3DS has a lot of gems on the console. Especially a lot of hidden gems. These hidden gems, especially 3DS eshop exclusives, will no longer be able to be purchased anymore. It's going to be like Flappy Bird all over again. Okay? So people can play these hidden gems on the 3DS. Because, of course, Nintendo they have no plan to offer classic content in other ways. Basically, under Series as a subscription-based model is acceptable to substitution for owning an actual game. With Microsoft, if you compare Nintendo, again, I know people are like, it's a Microsoft sale, but they allow you to buy games, Xbox 360 games, and Xbox One games on the next gen console, even if they discontinue the Xbox 360 store, which I wouldn't be surprised if they do. You can still buy all the 360 games on the Xbox One. You can still buy all the 360 library, or at least a good chunk of it, on the Xbox One. Of course, there's still some games that are not on the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X and S, but the games can be played on the next consoles. So that's basically about this video. Goodbye.